Commentary comes from Martin Brundle and David Croft.
And a very good afternoon to you from the venue that has seen 9 of the 10 fastest F1 races run ever. Today it's about qualifying. Things get even quicker. It's the Temple of Speed, it's Monza, it's round 14 of the Formula One season in 2016, and it's the final leg of the European parts of the season. The motorhomes get packed away and left to rest for the winter as we head on to Singapore after Italy. But first, it's a blast around the Royal Park. 3.6 miles long, 11 corners, 4 to the left and 7 to the right. 70% of your lap time taken at full throttle, only 36 gear changes per lap, and speeds in excess of 220 miles an hour. 2 DRS zones as well on the run down to the Ascari chicane and on the main straight towards the first chicane. And the green fields and the green trees hide one of the great sights in Formula One. The banking is still there, it's not used anymore, but Martin Brundle, there is no doubting this track is special.
It's wonderful, it's a challenge, it's slightly scary in places just because of the average high speed that you're running, and you always head off, lock your front door to go to Monza with a very good feeling.
And the good feeling this weekend so far comes Mercedes' way. Nico Rosberg setting the pace early on Friday morning. Lewis Hamilton taking over, a long way clear of his teammate in practice this morning. And both Mercedes a long way clear, sadly for these guys, of Ferrari.
Well, they look absolutely mighty. They don't get as much out of their super soft tyres, I think, because they've got so much grip anyway, frankly. They almost can't use the extra mechanical grip of the super soft tyre because they're already bolted to the racetrack with anything they put on it. But they do look as if they've got a fairly traditional, comfortable advantage here, Mercedes. But they're very close together. They're fighting each other hard. They've still got to navigate the phases of qualifying and make sure they don't make any mistakes in the race.
Gerhard Berger in conversation with Max Verstappen, a wise old head on one man's shoulders, maybe a wise young head. Max Verstappen listening to a few words of advice from the former Ferrari driver and of course Toro Rosso co-owner as well. Max Verstappen has been taking a bit of advice from anyone who cares to mention it over the course of this weekend. Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen have had their say. The press have asked their questions. Verstappen has answered the questions as well. And whilst nothing was said officially at the drivers' briefing, Charlie Whiting, the race director for Formula One, confirmed to Sky Sports News today that he has spoken to both Ferrari drivers and to Max himself.
Oh yes, I mean, the reason for meeting with the Ferrari drivers was to hear firsthand what their complaints were once the dust had settled slightly, so to speak. And then I wanted to talk to Max as well, just to hear what he had to say about it. In the case of the Ferrari drivers, they said they had no problem with Max at all. They just felt that perhaps he was a little bit too aggressive from time to time. Then I spoke to Max and just sort of indicated to him that maybe he could just calm down a little bit and all would be well. So no rules were broken, so I think everything was clear.
The banner down there, Martin said, Mad Max. He's not Mad Max, but there were stages at Spa that his aggression might have taken over a bit.
It's a matter of opinion, isn't it, in many areas. He's won this battle because he went to the drivers' briefing and they said nothing to him. And that was weak if they're prepared to speak to the media. And he's now established himself. He nearly went one step too far, not choosing his words too carefully, I think, about the comments that Jacques Villeneuve had made. But I think overall, Max has turned up, sat down, and okay, and he's won this battle without any shadow of a doubt. But the last minute, last second, late high-speed changes have got to stop. There's sort of an unwritten code there. You can't do that. That's going to put a car up in the air, and then fans, marshals, drivers are all at risk. And that's what Charlie Whiting is talking about there. Just calm down a little on that. And Max is saying, look, I drove like that through my junior career, what little there was of it.
Yeah.
It got me to Formula One. I don't really want to change it now. But then talked to a few drivers he was up against in Formula 3, and they felt he was unfair on the straights back then as well. So that needs just backing off a bit.
All of which is a far cry from the days when Jenson Button first came into Formula One, although he had his critics, of course, at that stage as well. Sergio Perez, news of Sergio Perez as the clock ticks to 2 o'clock in the afternoon here at Monza, and we can have the green light go, and there's a big round of applause from the Tifosi in the grandstands. News from Force India, though, that the contract is signed and Sergio Perez stays at the team for next season.
And what's interesting about that, David, is I think he was the cork in the bottle now of the drivers for next year. Everybody's waiting to see what Sergio Perez did with his sponsorship, with his skills and his speed that he has. And sitting at 14, that now leaves a clear seat open at Williams, of course, and we're wondering what Renault will do. So that'll be next up to get sorted out. Really, from the sort of top of the grid down, it's getting fixed, isn't it, in that order?
Enough of the silly season for the time being. A 5-place grid penalty for Romain Grosjean because they changed his gearbox, Ted Kravitz, after practice this morning. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, David. Afternoon, Martin. Afternoon, everybody. Fantastic atmosphere down here in the pit lane overlooking the start-finish straight. The crowd in good cheer as the giant flags came over the grandstand. And there's another banner in the grandstand that's caught my eye, guys. It says, "You cannot describe the passion, you can only live it." And they certainly are living it here this weekend at Monza. And there are tales from the top of the grid, the top of the pit lane and the bottom of the pit lane as well. People in fine fettle going into the session. That has to be Lewis Hamilton. They've done a few changes, small changes to his Mercedes, I'm told, between free practice 3 and this session. So it wasn't perfect. I think Lewis hopes it will be perfect for this qualifying. Let's see how close the fight is between he and his teammate Nico Rosberg, because they are leading by a country mile. Then seem to come the Ferraris, then the Williams drivers, interestingly. We'll see how that develops and who wants to do Q2 on the soft tyre, but I'm sure you'll talk about that more. And round the back, as you say, Romain Grosjean with a penalty, Jolyon Palmer, Marcus Ericsson, Kevin Magnussen, Felipe Nasr and Danny Kvyat, all not exactly feeling confident going into this session.
It always upsets the engineers a bit. You come in your P1 and P2, or your car's dominant, whichever category you're racing in. And of course, the first thing you start talking about is what you want to improve, what you're not happy with. You don't do a long list of, let's just list here everything we're happy with, please. And that wasn't a happy trip for Magnussen through turn 1. He's already run a little bit wide. And that's how you relentlessly improve your car. And there's no such thing as a perfect car, and in my view, no such thing as a perfect lap either. There's always something you can do better.
And there might not be such a thing as a perfect tyre choice here this weekend as well. Super soft tyres, medium tyres as well. Mercedes look to have a pace advantage that should get them through into Q3 if they ran the soft tyres in Q2. Soft tyres that then they could start the race on, go soft and medium, maybe turn it in to a one-stop race. The super soft might not last long enough to make it a one-stop race. You might have to spend too long on the mediums to make it the fastest, most effective way through your race tomorrow. But Mercedes should have that pace. Have Ferrari, have Red Bull got that pace? Are they willing to take a gamble in Q2? As it is, super soft tyres on Kevin Magnussen at the moment, and he's heading on downwards towards the Parabolica, and it might be the Temple of Speed, but it's also a racetrack of bumps as well. So when you're going along at nearly 220 miles an hour, your fillings are getting shaken out of your teeth somewhat. And Magnussen, as you say, had that little moment in the first chicane, Martin, where he ran a little deep, and he's putting a lap time of a 1:25.0. You've driven here before. What is it like on the straights here when you're in the cockpit, you're in control, and you're doing 220 miles an hour plus?
Well, for the first couple of laps, it seems ever so fast. Then it normalises, and then you haven't got enough power, and it feels awfully slow as the day unfolds. And you always want more power. You want to go faster. And then the big job here is to pick the braking point. A couple of meters too early, and you're wasting a load of time. A couple of meters too late, and you look an idiot. It's really hard to get it just right with the brakes and tyres at the right temperature, and the amount of energy. Talking 170 bar of pressure into the pedal. When I drive these cars, because my left ankle's not very good, if I have veins popping out the side of my forehead, pressing as hard as I possibly can to the point where it hurts, I can get to 100 bar of pressure, and that's it. And you're mostly pushing with your leg, with your thigh, actually. You're not moving your ankle around. And so they are supremely strong. We're putting that amount of energy into a brake pedal.
I remember going on a simulator as Grosjean goes second fastest that was set up with exactly the same brake pedal pressure that Fernando Alonso used in his Ferrari. I barely stopped. Yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying there. It is frightening how much pressure you need to put on. Approaching the Ascari chicane, for instance, you don't want to get your braking wrong there. You know you're going to muck up your lap if you don't get it spot on.
Yeah, Ascari's a bit of an arrive and drive. You don't want to take too much speed off there. It's a little bit bumpy. You crest a hill, actually. You can't really see it till you get there. as ever. When you're sitting on the floor like they are, it's a whole different perspective to when you're walking along, as you'll have heard me say over the years. And it's amazing bits of track that look so obvious from a high camera angle you cannot see at all as a racing driver.
Soft tyre is straight on for Sebastian Vettel, who gets the cheers of the crowd as he goes past. There you go. And Nico Rosberg on the super soft tyre.
The governor there.
Yep. He's not a happy governor, is he?
He's doing it exactly the opposite way to Ross Brawn. Ross Brawn sort of got everybody together and calmed them all down and took the stress out of it that inevitably is going to happen at Ferrari as a sort of a national team almost, isn't it? And Ross would just gently take them forward, whereas Marchione is thumping the desk. It'll be interesting to see how far he gets with that.
On board with Rosberg then to the Della Roggia chicane. End of the first sector, 27 seconds exactly into the first of the Lesmos. Slightly cambered corner. Get the exit right of the second of the Lesmos, don't drift too wide, and now you're flat out once again. Accelerating up to 210 miles an hour. 8th gear by the time this chicane, the Ascari chicane, comes your way. Gravel trap waiting for you either side. Nice, smooth flow through there on the exit, on the power once again.
It's easy in there now. We've got a yellow flag out there. Somebody's had an incident. There used to be a big tree right in the middle of that runoff area and a barrier that caught your attention. If you had a problem through there, they've taken that one away some time ago. And they made Parabolica too easy, haven't they? If you can run wide like that, that would be a trip to the hospital in the old days.
And you can see the yellow flags being waved at the end of the lap, a 1:22.4 for Nico Rosberg, and they're being waved for Esteban Ocon. Now, he had an electrical problem in practice on Friday that curtailed his running. And I wonder if he's had some sort of mechanical problem there. Doesn't look to be damage on the car, Martin. And the marshals just wheeling him away and off the track. His second Formula One qualifying, beaten by Pascal Wehrlein in Spa last weekend on his debut for the youngster. And it looks like Esteban Ocon's second qualifying has ended right at the start of his first flying lap here, as Hamilton goes quicker than Rosberg, 1:21.8 by 0.6 of a second. Last year we had a 1:24.2 as the fastest time in Q1.
Okay guys, same problem again. I'm stopped at turn 1.
Electrics for Esteban Ocon, and there's his mum and his dad watching on, but not watching him on track for any longer.
So you see the Lewis there was ahead of the incident, so he's been able to complete the lap. He needs to be a bit careful with those double wave yellows at the end of his lap, because there was a car coming out of the pits and he zoomed past that, so that's why he was able to do 3 purple sectors and go an amazing 1:21.8, and this lot are waiting for the yellows to disappear and a bit of space, and they've got that now.
Yeah, the yellows have gone. Space is of a premium here, to be honest, not because it's the shortest lap of the season, but it's the fastest lap of the season. You don't tend to have enough space when you want it the most. Race to the max. Max Verstappen having his fans wherever he goes. DRS wide open. Talk us through the lap, Martin.
Keeping it on the left-hand side is a bit bumpy. You can see they've got fresh floors on for the Grand Prix. You're going to pick a braking point about 120 metres before the first corner. You've got to be quite calm through that chicane. Curva Grande should be called Curva Straight Grande, actually Straighter Grande, because you're absolutely flat out. It's dead easy. And then bring it to the right-hand side. And in the shadow of the trees, the canopy of the trees under the bridge, and the track's not quite as easy to see there. And another left-right, very tight chicane, super bumpy on the exit. First Lesmo, got some banking, you can launch it in really nicely. You think you're going to run out of track, then you can save it right on the top. This one tightens through the exit a little bit and is quite a difficult corner. You can easily over-brake there. And now just ease through this left, down the slope. The car builds speed easily under the old banking. And then this is where you pop over the top of the hill to the unsighted Ascari chicane. We've got a car ahead that gets out of our way, but it distracted us, unfortunately. And a little lift, was it, just on the exit of the corner there. Diagonal the straight for the shortest route, making sure you're on the left-hand side well before Parabolica hit the anchors. And the corner just comes up and smacks you right in the face. And the slowest point's in the middle, of course, on the apex, and then you can really let the car go. Steer right for the shortest route to the timing beam, and that's 1 1/3 seconds off the pace there for Verstappen.
Third fastest, not for long. Sebastian Vettel beats him. Daniel Ricciardo next to come across the line. Nico Hülkenberg, by the way, was the car that Max Verstappen came across rather fast. Ricciardo goes 5th fastest behind his teammate by a couple of tenths of a second. Kimi Räikkönen goes 4th fastest for Ferrari. The Ferrari-Red Bull battle will be intriguing here. New engine upgrade. 3 tokens spent, final remaining 3 development tokens spent by Ferrari, not necessarily to give them more horsepower, but certainly to try and give them more reliability in some key areas.
Hamilton's been off the track yet again, because he's done it a lot in practice. At the second chicane, he's really trying to find the limit of his braking point there.
We gotta make sure that we don't get stuck behind. And then Bottas, that's there again.
Lewis Hamilton, quickest man on the track from his teammate Nico Rosberg. The 2 Ferraris on the soft compound tyre. To be honest, not a bad run at all on those soft tyres. Maybe allow a second for improvement when they get to the super softs. It still wouldn't necessarily put them in Mercedes territory. If Mercedes were to turn up their engine, which they normally do between Q1 and Q2, they give it a few more beans, a bit more power, and say to the others, come catch us if you can. Hülkenberg for Force India, who were disappointingly slow, by their own words, yesterday. 9th fastest for him. Sergio Perez yet to record a time, but he's in the process of setting his first flying lap at the moment.
Having been confirmed, as you pointed out, David, at Force India again next year. So this suggests to me that Mercedes want to do Q2 on the softs and start the race on those, and Ferrari have saved some super softs and may want to do Q2 on those with a different concept of how they're going to do the race.
Yeah, well, maybe they just feel they haven't then got the pace to guarantee they can get through on those soft compound tyres. It's about a second, 1.2 seconds difference, isn't it, between the two sets?
Yeah.
But these new tyre regulations at least bring a little bit of variability into how teams approach qualifying and then approach the race itself.
Well, I think there's no doubt about it. The 3 compound situation has really worked a treat, hasn't it? To add a bit of unknown into a race, particularly in the final stages of a race when it really starts to unfold. So that's one of the more successful things that we changed, and we haven't had to U-turn on, like qualifying earlier on in the year, like radio transmissions.
Totally forgotten what happened in qualifying at the start of the season. I think that's probably wise. Tyre pressures have been reduced from yesterday, by the way. It was 23.5 PSI at the front, 21.5 at the rear. It's now 23 at the front, 20.5, 20.5 at the rear. Pirelli, I suppose, responding to the team's request, or maybe the team saying they are just a little bit too high. They're a bit too rigid and blown up. We want a little less pressure, and it's been a theme for the last few races, that one.
You could just see the pressures are very high. They would ideally like to be 18, 17, 18 if they couldn't get away with even less than that. A lovely picture of the yaw, the slide through the Ascari, but that was all 4 wheels off, wasn't it, in Parabolica? And Ricciardo then similarly goes P4, 1 1/3 seconds roughly off the pace. I don't like to see that, I really don't. I was talking to a group of people, some campers, as I did at Spa last weekend. The fans really don't like the inconsistency of track limits, and I don't blame them.
Well, there's been nothing on track limits all weekend long, to be honest. So I assume the rule this weekend is that if you do go over the track, you're not gaining an advantage, so we're not going to do anything about it. But yeah, a lot of you do get very hot under the collar, and I'll go and stand amongst you any day of the week if you wish. Ted, down to you.
So they were unhappy campers, Martin?
No, they were very, very happy campers, but it was very interesting. People who paid good money and got in their car and come to a circuit, I very much like to hear their opinion. I like to hear everybody's opinion, like Formula One, but it's very interesting. They don't like the engine noise, they don't like the track limits issues, they don't want halo. That's my, talking to a lot of people this last 2 weekends, that's my feedback.
Talking of which, Ted, apropos of nothing, I bumped into your neighbours from number 10 yesterday. They said hello. Your neighbours...
Not with you.
No, well,
10 Downing Street?
No, well, if he's moved to Downing Street,
Oh,
he's
sorry,
got a pay
on
rise.
my street, the chap on my street.
Yes,
Yes, he lives up the street.
Yeah,
Oh, I
he lives at number 10.
He should, yes, he does. Him and his charming wife, I must say hello.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's no point in me saying hello on telly. They're here. So quick line on Daniel Ricciardo. He changed, Red Bull changed some crucial parts of his power unit overnight from yesterday to today. They say it was planned. Internal combustion engine, MGUK, MGUH, that's the energy recovery system, essentials, and the turbocharger. So he's going all right. A quick, and that's just him back in the garage you can hear behind me. Quick word on the cut-off time.
First.
Okay, Joe, so it was a quick, good lap until Ascari. I had you in 23.9, so 4 tenths faster than your lap, so you can do it.
Ahead of his teammate, but in the bottom 6.
I think 23.9 is quite a good guide for a cut-off time, and Fernando Alonso is going to have to work on that, keep that in mind, isn't he? And just a quick word on top speeds so far. Are we still in the 353 area, which is 221, I believe it is, miles an hour, just over 220 miles an hour.
Well worked out, 219.3. Thank you very much, Ted Kravitz. Right,
I'm a bit underwhelmed by that. I thought we were going to get 360, 370.
They haven't turned the engines up yet.
All right.
Wait till Q2.
You need a lot of power. You need a lot of power to go 5 miles an hour faster at 100, 200 and, what did you say,
219.3, yeah.
Wow, you need an awful lot of power to find 5 miles an hour there. Drag squares with speed, David, as you know.
Esteban Ocon is out of qualifying. Who's going to join him? Marcus Ericsson had his birthday yesterday. Kevin Magnussen fit to race. Here he is after the crash at Spa. Jolyon Palmer, who says they were very slow on the straight. Fernando Alonso, who thought that Q3 wasn't necessarily beneficial, and actually Q2 might be a little bit beyond him. Or Felipe Nasser as well, all in the bottom 6. Pascal Wehrlein, twice he's got out of Q1 this season in the dry. Has Wehrlein got the pace in his manner to do it again? Jenson Button is on the cusp, as is Danny Kvyat and Carlos Sainz as well. You think Nico Hülkenberg might just be safe, but he's out on the track anyway. And Felipe Massa and Sergio Perez definitely think they're safe because they're still in the garage. Right, here we go then with the final laps of this first part of qualifying. Fernando Alonso crosses the line, Jenson Button crosses the line. Watching in the garage, is that the man to replace Jenson Button for next season? The smart money says he might well be. Danny Kvyat, by the way, will be the last man to cross the line, and he's just making his way to Parabolica now as the bottom 6 try and get themselves out of the knockout zone, and those above it try and keep their heads above the line. Magnussen has got work to do. He's already needing at least a couple and a half attempts to get out of that bottom 16.
The easier finds around here are the braking zones. You can't really take much more speed through an apex like that, second Lesmo, and it is really about just pushing your luck in the braking zones. This is not too heavy, this braking zone. It's quite nice. The car just moves around a little bit and then clump a bit of curb on the inside. That was a lot of curb. And if your car's stuck, you can go, oh no, that's not where you need to be.
One good lap, that's all we need.
No pressure, Pascal, but he's already, through the first sector, putting in a decent lap. Of those around him, he's got at least a 10th in hand. Jenson Button, 27.1, same as Fernando Alonso in the first sector. Alonso knocked out in Q1 last year. Can Magnussen make it out of the bottom 16? No, he can't. He's out of qualifying. Jenson Button moves up into 12th. Fernando Alonso moves up into 14th, but only by a 10th of a second. Ericsson's down in the bottom 6, only 19th for the Sauber. We look for Nico Hülkenberg, who's the next to cross the line. Hülkenberg should be safe whilst we ride on board. Hülkenberg goes 7th with Pascal Wehrlein. Wehrlein to the line now, goes P14. Can the Manor get into Q2 again? Jolyon Palmer can't, certainly in the Renault. Danny Kvyat is still battling away out on the track. Carlos Sainz crosses the line. He's 13th fastest. Palmer is out qualified Magnussen, but he doesn't make it out of Q1. Here comes Felipe Nasser to cross the line. Now Nasser is P18 and Danny Kvyat crosses the line, and Danny Kvyat can't make it out of the bottom 6 either, whilst we watch that replay of Kevin Magnussen through Ascari.
And that all went wrong when he hit too much curb in the middle, put him slightly out of line. He tried to carry the throttle and just ran out of space. And yeah, that was all about just getting too greedy on the curb on the way in, and then the compound effect through the rest of the corner.
Esteban Ocon and this man, Kevin Magnussen, and Jolyon Palmer as the two Renaults eliminated in Q1. and not for the first time this season. Marcus Ericsson and Felipe Nasser in the Saubers, and Danny Kvyat joins them in the Toro Rosso as well. For this man, Pascal Wehrlein, it's delight once again. That's the third time this season in the dry, Martin. A manner has got out of Q1.
And he split the McLaren. I thought McLaren would be stronger than that. That's a very good lap from, yet again, from Wehrlein. And he was said, just one good lap is all you need. Kind of stating the obvious, but he delivered, he listened.
17th for Danny Kvyat. It is still his highest ever start at Monza.
Oh, what a last corner again.
But I don't think he'll take any crumb of comfort out of that being his best start at Monza. Problems for him and at Toro Rosso as well, and he's out in Q1 for the third consecutive race. And Alonso in the McLaren, well, less than 1/10 of a second between safety and relegation.
Danny Kvyat on the edge, isn't he? He's definitely on the edge.
Yeah, that misfire, you know, cost us a shot.
Some tales of woe out on the track, a misfire for Felipe Nasser, who levels the head-to-head at Sauber this season. It's now 7 apiece between himself and Marcus Ericsson. Ferrari, the only team to use the soft compound tyre in that session. Everyone else running on the super softs.
Dreadful pace from Renault, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, they basically only out-qualified a driver who broke down.
Well, this track, as we know, is about engine, engine, engine. We also know, if you speak to the guys down at Manor, that this has been their target all season. They've geared their whole thing around getting points here in Monza. So a mixed session. The fact that Ocon going out means that he'll be at the back of the grid. Wehrlein, though, showing that they do have the potential here. I think he was 5th quickest in that first sector with 26.9.
Yeah, and that's what we want to see. It's a bit unfair not to see Ocon getting the chance to go up against Wehrlein. That's what we feel the big battle is down there, but there should be a track they pick up something. They're looking like they're going to struggle to be any further up than where they are. I think they just managed to squeeze in. I would expect Alonso to be the one going forward from the end, you know, trying to make a step into Q3, but we'll wait and see. That Mercedes-Benz power obviously helping that car.
Well, I think it's good, a very good performance. I mean, things like that really help a driver's career. You know, people notice outperforming or performing in a car that's not expected much of, and very good performance. But Danny Kvyat is obviously very frustrated with his day.
Well, I think at least he can muster a smile. Do you understand why they've lowered the pressures here? I mean, the combination, as we know, of low downforce and high pressures makes it even trickier. We understand what happened. Thinking back to last year, what happened with Mercedes and heating those rims, they got away with it in the end.
Yeah, we were here until late in the evening, I remember, while they were discussing whether or not Mercedes had done something wrong. And the problem was that they had tyre failures, and continuous high speed at low pressure is going to induce, or likely to induce, a tyre failure. So Pirelli want to put air in the tyres, and they're just getting a kind of bit of a freebie. You get half a pound out of it just to get that performance back.
The one big thing you get here at Monza, because it's such a long straight, the camber, they put a restriction on the camber, but the inside shoulder of the tyre is extremely hot the quicker you go. And they were seeing some big blisters just on the inner edges, and maybe that's something to do with just to keep the contact patch a bit more spread across it with that lower pressure, rather than being like a balloon like it was.
Okay, let's hear from Kevin Magnussen. I think we can hear him speaking with Rachel.
Kevin, it was always going to be tough around here, but did you expect it to be quite that tough?
We kind of expected it. We expected Spa to be tough as well, and it was a bit better in Spa. So of course we were hoping it would be the same here, but it wasn't, and yeah, that's a shame. But you know, I think this is where we normally should be. Spa was a one-off, so I still feel, you know, I don't think it's such a big disappointment. Even though we were hoping that everything had changed overnight, but obviously there are no miracles. So this is where we are.
Could it have been any better without that little wobble coming out of Ascari?
Yeah, I mean, after P3, I knew that we were not gonna be like in Spa, and I thought with a really fantastic lap we could maybe make it into Q2, And you know, we've been P15, no, sorry, P16, 17, 18. So there's no, whatever we are in Q1, it doesn't matter. It's about trying to get into Q1, and I gave it everything I had. In the second run, I tried to get a toe from Lewis. That didn't work. And then in the third run, I just tried really to give it everything, and I went off. So yeah, it could have been better in Q1, but it's, you know, we're aiming a bit higher and just feel like going for it. So that's what happens.
Time for Q2 then. Kvyat, Nasser, Ericsson, Palmer, Ocon and Magnussen all out. Ocon didn't get a chance to set a lap time before his electrical problem stopped him at the first chicane. Magnussen, and for Renault, for the 5th time this season, the slowest qualifiers. Maybe the hint was at the European Grand Prix in Baku, where they were the slowest qualifiers there, and Baku very much stop-start kind of circuit like this.
Yeah, I don't know how their VMAX is doing. They're not the top speeds. They're not turning up anywhere in the top 6 on the chart. So yeah, Magnussen's 3:21. He's 4th in one of them over the finish line. And actually, yeah, so they've taken a load of downforce of it, because Magnussen turns up again, 2nd fastest in the absolute top speed. I've now seen his name. So clearly they've gone skinny on downforce, and it's still not enough to give them the pace they need, and he starts on the back row.
If it was a drag race, they'd be top-ish, but it's not. So straight out on the soft compound tyre here, we have Nico Rosberg in the Mercedes. Ted, down to you.
And we have the statement of intent. Lewis Hamilton also on the soft tyre in Q2. So let's see if it works for them. You would imagine they could run the medium tyre in this session and probably still scrape through, wouldn't you? Or even the hard. But yeah, it's obvious what they're going to plan to do tomorrow. And well, this keeps their strategy options open. Sometimes you do want to do a one-stop round here, ideally, guys. But the difference between 1 and 2 has always been very little, actually. So they might still end up doing 2, but at least it gives them options for tomorrow.
But they're fighting each other, really, aren't they? Let's be honest, Mercedes. They're mostly looking across the garage as to what they're going to do tomorrow and how they can win the race. Famous last words.
What's interesting is that Vettel and Raikkonen also go out to set the soft tyres. No?
No, they haven't
gone
out yet.
I was looking at the...
yeah, I think
at the app that
hasn't updated itself since Q1, that one, Crosby, I think. But there's
fair enough.
Only 2 cars on the track, and they're both silver.
Yep, colour blindness, not my thing. Sadly, internet connection not quite working in the commentary box the way we would want it to. Here's Nico Rosberg then, up against Lewis Hamilton, really for the fight for pole position to come. Getting out of Q2 is what we need to be concentrating on in this session.
They can one-stop with these little things on, can't they, for the race? Start on these, move to mediums, spray the champagne.
But which one? But technically, it's not champagne anymore. We keep saying that. It's a sparkling wine.
Sorry about that.
Nice. I know times change, but it's not right, is it?
It's still sticky, from what I can see of it.
Into the Ascari chicane we go then.
Oh, sweet. Just glancing the lines up against the curbs. And then parabolic a corner all to yourself. What a wonderful view from behind the steering wheel that is. And pick up the throttle nicely. Run the white line. Nico Hackney used to love those white lines. He felt the car accelerated more quickly, and I'm not so sure he wasn't right. It worked for him anyway. And Rosberg then a 21.8. So that matches Hamilton's super soft time, soft time rather. Super soft, I was right first time, in Q1. So if they've turned the engine up, and it's nip and tuck, isn't it, in the first 2 sectors. So it's all about this final corner. But of course, this is only to get through to Q3.
However, I'm sure Hamilton would like bragging rights as he crosses the line. He gets it by 0.3 of a second. Through the final sector, he picked up 0.3 of a second on his teammate, Dr. Zecher, the man in charge of Daimler Mercedes, smiling and shaking his head. So he's obviously supporting both drivers at the same time on that one. British driver is top then with Lewis Hamilton. Jenson Button is just out on the track. There's one British driver out of qualifying. It's Jolyon Palmer. He's with Rachel.
Jolien, we heard you on the radio, not enough power on the straight. It was going to be a difficult one, this one, wasn't it, being such a power-dominated circuit?
Yeah, I think we knew it was going to be pretty tough, and it was. So, yeah, I mean, straight line speed, we're lacking, but even compared to Kev, I'm down a little bit. So, but anyway, I think even with a bit more, we needed a few tenths to get into Q2, so this weekend, just not possible.
So tough after the exploits of Spa as well, with your best qualifying of the season. So what can you hope for the race tomorrow?
I did quite a nice race run yesterday, so we'll see. Maybe we can be more competitive in that. Hopefully slipstreaming the whole way would be nice. But yeah, we knew it was going to be tough here. So Spa, I think, was good. It showed the progress. Before summer break, we've been making a lot of progress. Singapore will show that again. But here, we know it's not going to be an easy weekend.
Watching Fernando Alonso out on track, listening to Lewis Hamilton on the team radio, suggesting that if they've got the tyres, he might want to go again.
Yeah, because I think he's flat spotted his right front, hasn't he, going into the first chicane there. And that's his race set. So he might want to try and go a little bit faster and claim those as his race tyres. Ted.
Red Bull also going with the slower, softer tyre compared to the super soft tyre in this session, which is interesting because they possibly don't have the 0.7 of a second margin that that Mercedes have. But actually, Red Bull, compared to if you look at FP3 guys, they weren't actually much faster on the super soft, were they?
No.
It didn't really work for them compared to the soft. So perhaps this isn't such as big a risk. But I'm interested also that Verstappen has done the same thing as Ricciardo. Verstappen's also gone thinking about starting the race on the soft tyre, which he didn't, of course, in Belgium, and what led to his desperation to get somewhere near the front.
It's possible, Ted, that Red Bull could also have been a bit heavier on fuel when they didn't go that much faster on the super soft this morning, trying to double bluff Ferrari a little bit. We'll find out in a moment as Sergio Perez hits the top speed for this qualifying session of 356 miles an hour, and Felipe Massa keeps out of the way in what, of course, will be his last Italian Grand Prix qualifying session. Meanwhile, his teammate Valtteri Bottas locking up.
As soon as you turn the steering wheel, you unload the inside front tyre, just from the kinematics of the suspension and a little bit of roll moment going into it all. And you could see it was absolutely correlated with him starting to turn the steering wheel. But Wehrlein ahead of Alonso and Button again. Both of them now with a 23.8. He's having a cracking afternoon, isn't he, in the manor?
Isn't he just? Pascal Wehrlein, for a team that before this season had only got into Q2 and the drive once, doing it 3 times now this year. And ahead, as Martin pointed out, of both McLarens, behind Hülkenberg, who's just gone P7. Verstappen now to cross the line. 6th fastest, 1.5 seconds off the pace. Not 6th fastest for much longer, because Sergio Perez goes ahead of him, and then Sebastian Vettel to cross the line. And there's the Red Bull on the super soft tyre, Martin. Can't get within 0.7 of a second of the Mercedes, and it's no wonder that Tifosi in that particular grandstand firmly sat down.
Yes. Pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Indeed, the pace difference. Just looking at who Sainz is just squeezing in at the moment, doing a fine job again for Toro Rosso. It's going to be a difficult end of the year. They're looking forward to the all-new Renault power plant next year, not as much as Renault are, I'd imagine.
One of the few teams that have barely spent any tokens, in fact hardly spent any tokens at all this season, as Ricciardo goes 9th fastest. They still have 21 left, should they so wish.
On the Renault,
to spend a few, yes.
Yeah. So, Ricciardo Verstappen then. What are they going to do now? They've tried to go on soft. They're both in, just. Do they think that Grosjean and Hülkenberg, Sainz can usurp a 23 flat, a 23, a 0, a 0, 4? Tough decision, that one. I think I'd rather have the track position, because it's always carnage, or can often be carnage in the first chicane here, can't it? And have to compromise my race strategy than take the risk that they're on now. Ferrari didn't take the risk, as you pointed out.
It's worth saying the track temperature's gone down 2 degrees in the last 2 or 3 minutes. I think there's a bit of cloud coming over. A bit of cloud can often speed up the track. That half a second, you'd think actually is quite a comfortable margin. but if the track's starting to speed up and the temperature drops even further, then that might not be very comfortable at all.
It would be Grosjean, maybe. Grosjean's capable of that. Hulkenberg would be the one I'd be concerned about, that he suddenly finds some time. Sainz, is he going to find a half a second out of the Toro Rosso?
Not sure.
Well, who knows?
Esteban Ocon had problems, didn't he, at the start of qualifying? Didn't even get to set a lap time. Let's see if we can hear from him.
Esteban, such a shame for you there in that session. Just tell us what happens.
Yeah, disappointed. I mean, I had the same problem as yesterday in practice. So yeah, 2 times the same issue, and I couldn't restart after that. I was blind and I couldn't see any information on my dash, and the engineer neither. So yeah, that's how it is as motorsport sometimes.
What have they said to you about the race tomorrow and in terms of what might need to be changed on the car?
We'll need to investigate what it is, but yeah, it can't happen 3 times. I mean, 2 it's enough. So no, we will for sure have a lot of opportunities tomorrow, and it should not happen again.
Have they identified exactly what it is?
Not yet, no. Need to have the car back and see what it is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So Esteban Gutierrez, the Mexican, in Q3 as it stands at the moment. Haas haven't been in Q3 so far this season. His teammate might be on the cusp of making it into Q3, but he will take a 5-place grid penalty wherever he finishes up because he's had a gearbox change. Haas with their new rear wing, of course, here.
Young Ocon there thanking the media. You don't hear that very often.
He's a very polite young man.
Very nice boy.
Let's give it a couple more races.
He does seem
He's
a
lovely.
lovely kid, actually. I've only met him once or twice. But so, surprises in there then. Can Wehrlein, they all used tyres. Wehrlein, Alonso, Button. That would put a wry smile on the old McLaren hands of Davy Von Ryan, wouldn't it? And Pat Fry. And I've seen a few others there as well recently, and if they're in amongst the McLarens. But that's to look out for. Ricciardo and Verstappen, surely they'll have to go out. Can they take the risk of ending up 12th, 13th on the grid?
Well, the thing is as well, if they go out, then do the likes, and there you are. They are coming out on the super soft tyres. Ted, to you.
Yeah, everyone's coming out for another run. Why not? They're both Mercedes. So Hamilton as well after that flat spot on a new set, I believe, of soft tyres. Rosberg also soft tyre, but Ricciardo and Verstappen super soft. So that plan about doing a different strategy didn't work.
No.
Well, it will be. It'll be a different strategy than Mercedes, but they'll have to pit after 14 laps or so if the red stripe tyre makes it that far.
See, interestingly, Esteban Gutierrez is also coming out, and his 1:22.9 they don't think is safe enough at Haas. So does that mean Felipe Massa needs to leave the garage as well, because he's only 200ths faster?
I wonder why Raikkonen felt he needed to come out. I guess they've been caught out, Ferrari, haven't they, too many times in this situation. But Vettel in the pits. So actually, of the 16 remaining, 14 have gone back out, which is nice.
Both Hamilton and Rosberg included on that. Well, Hamilton safe with his time, but as you say, Martin, flat spotted his tyres and wanted to go again if they've got the tyres to do it.
Yeah, I don't really understand, unless they're just going to put a scrub lap on them and come straight back in on some race tyres.
Well, Hamilton can't do that though, can he?
You don't tend to scrub Pirellis like we used to do on some tyre makes, but I just don't understand. I can understand Hamilton with the flat spot. I don't understand why Rosberg's gone out again, because a 21.8 is not under pressure.
Here we go then. Max Verstappen crosses the line now. The clock starts ticking. He's currently 10th fastest overall. And they've decided super soft tyre they need to be on. They can't afford to sit in the garage and watch, or they can't afford to put another set of soft compound tyres on as well, because they just weren't getting the pace. And in Verstappen's case, well, he only had 5 sets of the soft compound tyres anyway. One more set of the super soft allocated for the weekend. And already 4 tenths down, Martin, in the first sector alone.
You know, that'll be straight line speed, won't it? And
interestingly, just while we watch Verstappen, Hamilton's gone slower through the first sector than he did before. It's quite a crucial lap. If he's got a flat spot on his tyres, he would not want to be using those at the start of the race. Whatever time you set that's the fastest in Q2, if you make it into Q3, that is your race tyre, starting tyre for tomorrow. He's now improving, now got the grip that he wants, and he's set the fastest middle sector time of all. Track temperature 41 degrees, checkered flag is out. Nico Rosberg didn't, sorry Martin, Nico Rosberg didn't make the flag, by the way, so this lap that he's on isn't going to count anyway. Verstappen crosses the line, goes 6th fastest.
I was about to say, I don't think Verstappen's lap was unfolding very nicely.
Alonso misses out, only 11th fastest. Hulkenberg now into the top 10. Here's Jenson Button, 13th fastest, out qualified by Alonso and out of qualifying as well. Esteban Gutierrez never started higher than 15th here. He is 6th fastest and surely making his way into the top 10. Ricciardo misses out. Daniel Ricciardo, going through the final turn, he's got across the line. He hasn't missed out, no, he's gone 6th fastest. He just got usurped as Gutierrez went into 6th place, and then Kimi Räikkönen out on the track as well. Sergio Perez was in there. He has improved to go 9th fastest overall. Räikkönen now comes in after aborting that lap. Thought for a moment Daniel Ricciardo had missed out, but no. He makes it through into the final parts of qualifying. Perez and Hulkenberg are in there for Force India. It's Felipe Massa that just misses out. 11th fastest for him by 1/100th of a second. Felipe Massa in his final Italian Grand Prix qualifying doesn't make it to Q3.
I don't know how flat-spotted Hamilton's tyres were, but he's got to start the race on them. He went slower on the next lap. He did a 21.669 instead of the 1:21.498 he already had on the board. He will start with that first set of tyres.
Can he change it though? If it's too bad, can he change it on safety grounds?
Unless he's burned a hole completely in it, and I doubt he's done that.
Which position we are? We are P13, but Grosjean in front has a penalty. Okay. I didn't feel the power either now. Losing on the straights, unfortunately.
And the power not enough for Fernando Alonso. So yeah, so unless it's dangerous, and he's burned through to the carcass.
Unless it's cut or punctured, and then they can only replace it with another tyre of a similar distance. Now, he's got another set of tyres, so maybe they'll be trying to do that if it's got a very bad flat spot on it. But I think they've got to be fairly strict on that. Otherwise, everybody will be flat spotting a set of tyres to get some changes. But it's got to be at least as old if you do change one of the tyres.
Carlos Sainz knocked out in Q2 for the 3rd consecutive race. Makes his way back into the pits. That's such a shame that for Felipe Massa. It's the first time he's outside the top 6 on the grid here since his final season at Sauber back in 2005, on what is an emotional weekend for him, announcing his retirement from the sport at the end of the season. So Sainz, Button, who's been out-qualified by Fernando Alonso for the 9th time in 13 races. Didn't race, of course, in Bahrain. Fernando Alonso, Fernando Alonso, I should say, Romain Grosjean and Felipe Massa also joining that bottom 6. Grosjean will take a 5-place grid penalty. So Pascal Wehrlein will start 13th on the grid for the Manatee.
Split the McLarens in the end, as we were pointing out. He might do. Gutierrez then, the star of Q2, you'd have to say.
It's a stonking lap.
Yeah.
And for the first time this season, Q3 takes place with a Haas F1 car in it.
Arriba, as they say in Mexico. Well done to him. Lewis Hamilton, though, it looks like will be starting with a flat-spotted front right tyre. This is what he thought about things over teammate.
A small flat spot on this right front, so I'll go again if we've got the tyres.
Well, they did go again. and he couldn't go any better. So, Paul, you think he'll have a case really for on safety grounds or not?
He will have a case. But the reason they've done another run, they didn't have to do that, but they've done that because what they can do is they can apply to the FIA, say they've got a flat spot. That's, you know, obviously a hazard. So what they'll do is if say they've got a similar age tyre that's done a similar lap time, we'll need to replace it like that. And that's probably why Lewis went a little bit slower, because he would have been a little bit safer on the brakes. And it's just to get the mileage up on the tyre to make sure they can say it's a like for like.
So why wouldn't he go for a time and try and get a clean set that do the quicker time then? Is that just too difficult?
I guess you don't need to, and I guess taking the risk of flat spotting it again, then you can't apply to the FIA to change the tyre if he's flat spotted 2 tyres.
Pascal Wehrlein splitting the 2 McLarens of Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button. As we heard there, just another reminder that Romain Grosjean does actually have a 5-place grid penalty anyhow, so they'll all shift up one, or at least the 5 below him will. But that was a great effort by his teammate. That's a bit of a surprise to you?
Very. I mean, you know, I actually nudged Paul in the qualifying session. I was going, what's going on there? You know, Gutierrez, what? And it's a good question. What is going on there?
Well, I think they've arrived here. They've come here with a specific wing for this track. Super Mario's moustache, as people were calling it. It's kind of got a nice wave in it. Looks very low in downforce. We saw Grosjean having a little bit of an off at the Ascari chicane this morning in FP3, so it's very light on downforce, not giving much grip, but it's obviously giving great top speed. And in contention, just whether they've got tyres left, I hope, to try and make a challenge in Q3 to be representative of where they finish that one.
That's what we like to see, there isn't it? A bit of ingenuity, a new team on the block, you know, doing something different.
Too right. Felipe Massa, though, won't be happy. I wonder what his team will be thinking. Both of those Force Indias weren't showing it in P3, but they've got ahead of him, and in that battle for 4th, there's just 2 points. Remember, Force India overtaking Williams last time out. That's something we're really keeping a keen eye on. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, they are. You know, I'm obviously in the meetings, keen to see Williams do it. The saving grace, I suppose, is Valtteri being where he is. He's looking very strong. But Felipe, you know, he's in a good position there actually, because what they can do is he's the first of the guys who can choose the tyre and do something different with strategy.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have here, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Given where Force India are, they're kind of like hovering 9th and 10th. So I think that's probably a stronger position actually.
Ted was talking about there not being too much between a 1 and a 2 stop here. Is that how you see it? Is that how the guys in there are seeing it in Williams?
I'm not going to give anything away, but what it purely comes down to is cloud cover tomorrow. There's increased cloud. You know what you can do with Felipe, he can obviously start on the soft tyre and go to the medium and make a one-stop work if that was his plan. Equally, he could do a very aggressive 2 with fresh tyres. You know, something like the guys who, like in Force India, they're going to have to start the tyre that's done a very hard qualifying lap, spinning the rears up.
Looks like a 2-horse race, or it is a 2-horse race, you have to say, between Mercedes out front, but there's a real scrap in behind. Let's head back up for Q3, see who will take pole with Martin and David again.
Well, so far this season, it's been Mercedes on pole 12 times out of 13. Pole crucial here at Monza. The last 6 races have all been won from pole position. You go back to Rubens Barrichello, the last man to win here from outside the front row as well. And it looks like it's Hamilton against Rosberg to line up on that front row, but who gets pole? 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris, 1 Williams, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Force Indias, and for the first time ever, a Haas F1 for Q3. And it has to be said, in their first season in Formula One, that's a mighty achievement. We should say a big yee-haw, shouldn't we, for Haas F1?
Yeah, I like the way they've come about Formula One racing, although the governor's saying, you know what, I wish I'd have bought it. It'd been easier in the end to have bought another team. I might get some constructors' money a bit earlier, but they've started with a clean slate. They're closely aligned with Ferrari. It's sort of almost a Ferrari B team. They've certainly, Gutierrez has done a very good job there. Ted has found Jenson Button.
Jenson, just talk us through that. I know you moved forward 1 place for the race tomorrow, but are you pleased, disappointed about where you expected?
Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit better, but it was always going to be a tough race for us, qualifying for us, and a tough race. Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit better than this, but yeah, it wasn't the perfect lap, and all day I've had a little bit on Fernando, but he's pulled out in qualifying, so he's in front as well. Cheeky little monkey. We'll make it good tomorrow. Our starts are good at the moment, and we'll hopefully fight forward. But this is always going to be the most difficult race for us. We go to Singapore after here, and we'll be expecting a lot more.
Race pace, what was it looking like on Friday? I know it doesn't matter really around the corners here because you get on those straights and that's where you're lacking, but P7 in Spa for Fernando was a good result. What can you do here?
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll get that lucky with the red flag and what have you, but I still think we can race better than we qualify. That's always been our strength, really, the last few races, so hopefully we can do that, and interesting to see what people do with strategy.
Ted had a little accident this morning, Crofties. His voice sounded remarkably like Rachel there.
Well, yeah, he did find Jensen Button, but it's ladies first.
Of course, yes.
But
Or it could have been me completely mishearing what was said in my ears.
Sorry?
Or something like that. Anyway, they're out.
Right, so let's concentrate then on Q3. And for Ferrari, well, it's the vital thing for them is to get one or preferably both cars on that second row so that they can use their decent starts on that 638-metre run down towards the first turn. That's what Sergio Marchionne will want as a minimum. I'm sure Piero Ferrari, I'm sure, would be in agreement with that as well. As round the final corner, the Parabolica, comes Nico Rosberg. Rosberg to start his first time lap of this Q3 session. Hülkenberg, Vettel, Hamilton, Raikkonen, Perez, Gutierrez, Verstappen, Ricciardo, Bottas in that order on the track.
We saw there Rosberg, he had about 4 different housekeeping items on the steering wheel, didn't he, down the straight at 220 miles an hour.
The only thing he wasn't doing was his online shopping. Here comes Rosberg then towards the end of the first sector, 26.7. Something of an improvement there with the super soft tyres. Hülkenberg with a 27 seconds exactly first sector. Sebastian Vettel a 10th down on Rosberg with a 26.8. Onwards towards the second Lesmo corner.
Hamilton 2/10 up in the first sector on this lap that we're on board with as we head up the slope towards the Ascari chicane. Let's just grab a little bit of curb on the inside. Didn't quite get there, did it? But neat and tidy. Got the grip, the poise, the confidence just to ride those white lines and not unsettle the car on the exit curbs as he heads into Parabolica. And Hamilton had 3/10 out of him in Q2 in this final sector.
They matched each other in the middle sector, Hamilton and Rosberg, who's never been on pole at Monza before. Here's the target time for everyone. It's a 1:21.6 for Nico Rosberg. Hamilton 2/10 up. Hülkenberg with a 1:23.3. Sebastian Vettel will be next to cross the line. It's a 1:22.3. Puts him second place. All eyes now turn right to the exit of the Parabolica. Here comes Hamilton, who has been on pole here before, who has been on pole the last 2 years, who is on provisional pole at the moment by some margin. Kimi Raikkonen ahead of his teammate Sebastian Vettel by pretty much the same 3/10 of a second as well.
Good effort there from Raikkonen. And yeah, he's the fastest Ferrari. They're 3/4 of a second down, more than I expected him to be when push came to shove in qualifying on these super softs. But then it's all about Force India, 5th and 6th. Bottas, the lone Williams in 7th. And, well, Bottas hasn't set a time yet. That's why he's still showing 7th from Q2.
This where Nico Rosberg lost a little bit of time.
So he's got something in his pocket then, hasn't he? If he can tidy that one up.
If he's got something in his pocket, it needs to be more than just loose change at the moment. Valtteri Bottas goes 5th fastest in the Williams.
Wow. And only a 10th behind Vettel.
Good effort from him. Some happy faces in the Williams garage. Ted, down to you.
And that's delivering on expectations, hopes we should say, for Williams. They thought they'd be around the 5th, 6th mark, so that's good for them. Actually, I thought they were going to be with both cars. Yeah, we'll see. But just quickly, that was good positioning by Kimi Raikkonen because he followed Lewis Hamilton out of the pits. I do believe he was close enough to get a tow off Mercedes.
Yeah, Rosberg was the first man out on the track, so he's not got a chance really of picking up a tow off anywhere there. Would you expect him to be saying, no, can you send me out behind somebody else maybe? Or are Mercedes too quick to even think about the tow?
We've seen so many times they've tried, people trying to orchestrate a tow and they just get in each other's way. But if you can steal one by chance, then great. And you're getting some slipstream effect. Even 10 car lengths behind, somebody else has broken the air. and your car glides through it just that little bit more easily. But it's hard to orchestrate here.
Max Verstappen was reporting on the radio that the front tyres just not warming up anymore at the end of Q2. Not getting the grip that he would wanted at the moment. 1/10 of a second behind his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who of course leads the head-to-head 7-2 at Red Bull before today. This is Esteban Gutierrez.
Back getting stepped out on the way into second. Lesmo, there's a job for the paint shop in the week. 100 miles an hour through the gravel trap, and yeah, he tried to carry the speed. It's so tempting there. Every time you go through that second Lesmo corner, you think, I could have gone faster, but you can't quite often. It's a really frustrating, slightly clumsy corner because all the weight on the front, you've braked, you start to turn in, there's a little bit of banking there, and you're so heavily loaded across the front axle that, as can often happen, the back just won't live with it.
So as Dr. Zetcher watches on from the Mercedes garage, the Mercedes power and the Williams of Felipe Massa not powerful enough to give him a spot in Q3, although he did record the fastest time, or fastest speed I should say, 357 kilometers an hour through the speed trap. It's 221 miles an hour. He's with Rachel now.
Felipe, I imagine not getting into Q3 is quite a disappointment, but actually, considering where you start now tomorrow with fresh choice of tyres, it's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, this is the positive thing of starting 11th, because you can choose the tyres you start, and maybe, you know, can work pretty well tomorrow in the race. But definitely, I'm not happy for my lap at the end of the qualifying, so I had to go really slow on the out lap on my second try. And I just had no grip since the start of the lap until the end. That really, yeah, it didn't help to improve the lap time like everybody was doing.
What was it? Timing getting into traffic? Was it the tyres not being warmed up properly?
Yeah, there were so many cars in front of me, and I couldn't really prepare my tyres in the right way. Yeah, I think it was something related to that. But let's concentrate on trying to achieve a better result tomorrow.
Are you the third best team in the race, do you think, or fourth best?
I hope. We know that our biggest issue in the last race was the consistency on the tyres, and this will be a key for tomorrow.
Good luck tomorrow to Felipe Massa. Let's carry on with qualifying then. Time for the final runs in Q3, where it looks like a Mercedes pole, barring any divine intervention to shine down on the Tifosi and the Scuderia. If it is the Mercedes pole, Rosberg and Hamilton will equal the record of pole positions as teammates that's currently held by Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber from their Red Bull days. Lewis Hamilton on provisional pole at the moment, attempting to become a 5-time Monza pole sitter. He'll tie Juan Manuel Fangio and Ayrton Senna as a 5-time Monza pole sitter, and Rosberg attempting to reach 29 poles in his career, but which way will it swing?
Hülkenberg's in a nice position here because he can stay close to the Mercedes, knowing that it's not going to slow him down later on in the lap, and he can take a slipstream down the pit straight if he can get anywhere near close to it on the outlap. They're certainly attacking the outlap, aren't they, to keep the tyres up to temperature, brakes and what have you. So this is about the two Mercedes head-to-head. We know that Rosberg's got more pace because of the small error he made. And then just behind them, Raikkonen, Vettel, Bottas, Ricciardo, Verstappen, all so close together.
I said Rosberg never on pole here at Monza before, and once has he been on the front row. Hamilton was on pole in 2009, 2012, 2014 and 2015. Ayrton Senna was the last man to take 3 consecutive pole positions here at Monza. Could Hamilton tie that this afternoon? Kimi Raikkonen, can he stay ahead of his teammate Sebastian Vettel? What can Nico Hülkenberg do? Can he pick up a toe from the Mercedes that he's following on the track? Esteban Gutierrez needs a time in Q3. Sergio Perez wants to improve from P9, and Bottas, Ricciardo and Verstappen, where will they end up as well as Rosberg heads on his way towards the end of the first sector?
26.5 seconds is the best we've seen in the first sector, so that's the benchmark. And we've already seen Bottas matching that in the Williams.
And Rosberg, 26.6. He's already over a 10th outside of the best first sector time. Hülkenberg puts in a 26.7. That's way up on what he managed on his previous flying lap. Hamilton, too, is a little outside that first sector time. Track temperature has dropped by 2 degrees. Could that have a bearing on it as well? We carry on with Rosberg, heading towards the Ascari chicane.
27.7, the fastest we've seen in the middle sector. They're coming up towards that point. It's a 27.6 for Raikkonen this time. So we've got some different performances out there. Bottas and Raikkonen, the two Finns, are flying along nicely.
Rosberg, though, has picked up a little bit of time through the middle sector, as has his teammate Lewis Hamilton then. Hamilton, by 8/100ths of a second, is increasing his advantage. Rosberg needs to pull it all out through the parabolica and towards the line. Can he take his first ever pole here at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix? No, he can't. Nico Rosberg misses out. So it's all eyes now to Lewis Hamilton, who exits the parabolica himself, aiming for 3 pole positions in a row. Surely it's his by more of a margin. It is. Hamilton with a 1:21.1 gets a round of applause, gets a smile on the faces of the Mercedes garage, and a hat-trick of consecutive poles here at Monza.
Oh, that's very, very wide indeed for Vettel, but keeps the pedal pinned to the floor and goes into P3 with that, ahead of Raikkonen. Verstappen's cleared Ricciardo. Ricciardo can answer back now.
Ricciardo does answer back, but no, yes, improves his time. Raikkonen now to cross the line, can't improve and can't go ahead of his teammate Sebastian Vettel. The consolation for Ferrari is that they have an all-red second row. Valtteri Bottas will take position number 5. Ricciardo is ahead of Verstappen. Perez is ahead of Hülkenberg. Gutierrez completes the top 10. Hamilton is on pole once more at Monza, and it is a 5th Italian Grand Prix pole to equal Juan Manuel Fangio.
That's pole position, mate. Great work there. Well done.
And Ayrton Senna.
Big margin. Formula 1 car goes a long way in a half a second at those speeds. Yeah, so Vettel completely off the road, partly crossed up, floors the throttle and goes P3.
Must have done some good elsewhere in the lap then. A 1:21.1. Last year's pole time, a 1:23.3.
Super soft tyres, of course.
Yeah.
But that's what they found over the year. Same track layout, they're going to change. Is it next year they're going to get?
Yes.
Inside. That doesn't sound good. Changing Curva Grande for something else, for a chicane or something.
Yeah, it might make a longer run to the first braking zone. It's not been met with a universal approval, those changes. And Hamilton has stopped his teammates' run of pole positions. Rosberg, the front of the grid in Hungary, Germany, and of course in Spa last week, where he won from the top spot. It's Hamilton back on pole and taking his 7th pole position of the season. Wave to the fans. And this weekend, free of any engine penalties, nothing to stop Hamilton at the front of the grid. 2 Ferraris will line up behind the Silver Arrows, looking for a good start and looking to try and salvage something from a pace differential. At the moment, 0.3 of a second between Rosberg and Vettel, 0.8 of a second between Vettel and Hamilton.
The only problem for Hamilton then is that front right tyre that looks a bit like a 50-pence piece. But otherwise, that's psychologically pretty strong, isn't it, against his teammate Rosberg there, and Vettel then just stealing glory for Ferrari. Touch margin, all that, running wide in the last corner as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they certainly did. A lot of them have been doing it, and the FIA hadn't picked up on any track limits before. Let's head down to hear from Niki Lauda. He's with Ted Kravitz.
Niki, well done. People might say, oh, well, you know, we're expecting pole, but you never know at Monza what Ferrari might bring, do you?
Therefore, I'm more surprised the time difference Mercedes could put on Ferrari, because it's 7-8 tenths, which is a lot here. So I'm completely pleased. No more to say. Lewis, Nico, fantastic job.
Yeah, how do you see the the balance between them, how you observed them this weekend.
The moment Lewis seems to be quicker here, very simple to explain. The race tomorrow can be different, all depends on the start and what happened during the race. But whatever Mercedes prepared themselves with the right tires to go tomorrow into the race, for me, a perfect job today.
Indeed, perfect job. Thank you for your time.
Another front row lockout for Mercedes-Benz, their 41st front row lockout. All Ferrari row 2. Valtteri Bottas starts in the top 5 for the first time since he was on the front row in Russia. Daniel Ricciardo ahead of Max Verstappen, Perez ahead of Hülkenberg, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Force Indias, and then the Haas of Gutierrez and the Williams of Felipe Massa. Rubens Barrichello, the only man to win the Italian Grand Prix from below the front row in this century. Can Ferrari emulate the former Ferrari driver in tomorrow's race? Did it, of course, for Brawn here in 2009, the last time. Romain Grosjean takes a 5-place grid penalty. Pascal Wehrlein in the Manor out-qualifying Jenson Button in the McLaren, not quite out-qualifying Fernando Alonso. And Esteban Ocon, his teammate, stopped with an electrical problem. He'll start at the back of the grid for tomorrow's Italian Grand Prix.
Well, back to business for Lewis Hamilton. In the end, a large margin, almost half a second, between himself and his teammate Nico Rosberg, and cause for reflection for the German. After victory, he would have been loving to build a bit of momentum off the back of it. And Sebastian Vettel also with a little bit to ponder, almost a second off. I mean, it was always going to be a 2-horse race. You're surprised by the gap between Hamilton and Rosberg?
Yeah, I am. This is one. I think this is an enormous gap. I mean, we're used to seeing a couple of tenths, 3 tenths maximum, 4 tenths of a gap between the two, between Rosberg and Lewis, on a circuit like this without much, you know, in the way for driving and stuff. So it just shows you that there's an enormous performance gain there by Lewis somewhere. And I was wondering, I was asking Paul di Resta whether it's engines, you know, but he says that the performance of the engines is probably similar, but it's a great performance by Lewis today.
But that's as good as Ferrari could have hoped for. I mean, they're never going to get ahead of Mercedes. We've seen evidence of that all weekend. I mean, they're under pressure at their home race, and someone split them, and Bottas got ahead of one of them. No, then that would have been deemed a failure, wouldn't it?
Good performance by Sebastian and by Ferrari. I mean, that's to get within 8 tenths on this circuit is good, and within 4 tenths of the other Mercedes driver, I would say is threatening. You know, it's quite good.
Okay, 1:21.1 was the pole time for Lewis Hamilton.